Welcome to Dollar Tell Me or Go Ahead Tell Me. If you love film and believe that it's a platform that can be used as a call to action, you'll love today's episode with filmmaker and former NFL player Jon Alston. So if we can start off kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got your start, and I know you were in the NFL for a while and then into film, so I'd love to hear how you went from NFL to film and what kind of brought you to where you're at now.
Yeah, totally. That journey has been a long one. It's been very interesting going from sports to, the creative field. And, I don't know. It was one of those things where, for me, I always was interested in the arts. When I first started being interested in the arts, it was more so along the lines of like acting in a way. But when I was a kid, I used to be really into comic books. I used to write a lot and draw a ton. And, but then I got into sports, and then, I got to Stanford, and I was like, I don't know if I could tell my parents that I'm studying dramatic arts at Stanford. So I studied public policy, and then I got a minor in dramatic writing when I was first time through there, and I went back later in 2016, and I'll come back to that, and got a degree in film media studies. But, for me, it's, I was working on my first film in New York in 2011 and 2012, and I used to work at the Soho House in New York often to do the edits and stuff, and I met this guy named Neil McClellan, and we spent a lot of time together. And Neil is the guy that produced, these albums for The Prodigy, like The Fat of the Land, and he's a dope guy from the UK. And he would talk a lot. I mean, this guy's a character, right? But I love this guy. I asked him the same question you're asking me, and he told me how he got into music producing when he was a kid. He went to a record store with his father, and he heard sounds coming from a speaker. The speaker was bigger than he was at the time, right? And he loved it. He was interested, and he asked his dad. He's like, who's this? Dad tells him it's the Beatles, and then he looks at his dad. He tells his dad that he wanted to be in the speaker with the Beatles. He wanted to be in there with them. And, when you're a kid, you don't know any better, but you do kind of know your truth as a kid. Like, everything is real as anything. Every thought that you have, this is the truth, right? And, what he taught me, our conversations was he's like, look, a lot of people, if you really look at it, we kind of know who we are at a really, really early age, what we're interested in, right? And when you're a child, you're more likely to accept that, right? You don't have to deal with the questions that anyone else brings. And so, for him, music was always in him. It was in his soul, right? And for me, I think writing, creating, crafting, directing, this is what I do now is just an evolution of what I used to do naturally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So, studying dramatic writing was a great thing. My last year, right before my last year in the NFL, right before I signed my deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and I was leaving the Raiders because I was a free agent, I did a it was like a month at New York Film Academy, and that was a really, really great experience in New York City, and I did well and studied directing there a little bit, and I was like, you know what, I feel very natural at this. And then I went out and I started I bought some camera equipment, and I really started teaching myself photography, studying the craft more, reading books, breaking things down, and I was like, this is I don't know, I just feel drawn to this. And then after I retired that year because of a couple of concussions in my fifth year in the NFL, moved back to New York and started working on an independent feature after doing a commercial or two. And that independent feature, I wrote it really fast, but it took about 3 years to finish. We produced it within 3 months of me writing it, which is crazy. That's a whole other story on its own. It's on iTunes now. It's called Red Butterflies. It's a really cool movie, but it was my first thing, right? And but it took 3 years to finish. I didn't know what I was doing as far as post-production is concerned, and getting through it and really trying to understand, really just trying to understand what it means to make a movie, market a movie, sell a movie, move a movie. I didn't know, but I was like, you know what, I have to try, because otherwise, if I don't pay my dues and I don't push myself, I'm not going to really invest in this something that I really care about. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to jump in, go all in. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to succeed or fail. I just know I'm not going to quit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And so, that just kind of started the journey. I mean, look, where I'm at now, 10 years later, I would have to believe that, I'm much better at my craft. But there were some things that I think that I just naturally had and naturally did early on that I actually want to continue to expound upon and use in my art as I continue to grow. So that was the kind of the start of that. In 2014, that movie premiered at the St. Louis International Film Festival, which was great, having that relationship with St. Louis and all these other things. And then, coming from that, after that premiered, I started writing again. Michael Brown was killed on August 9th of 2014. And, there was a lot of divisiveness around that. I was in St. Louis. You had the Ferguson protests. The city was on fire. It was just a lot. And I wanted to understand it more, so I started reading everything that I could. I started reading the DOJ reports, the grand jury testimonies, and understanding and piecing these things together just so I could be like, look, I need to understand it so that I can figure out a way to communicate with the people that I know who are on both sides of this narrative,
Yeah.
And I found a lot of stuff, and then I started writing. I just started writing about this, and I wrote a pilot called Ferguson. At the end of it, it was 183 pages at first. I whittled it down to 55,
Wow.
like nice pages. I know, of work, and it became a story that eventually, I didn't show anyone really until, I guess 2018, and wound up getting an agent off of that, and started working in television off of that. But in between there, I went back to Stanford in 2016, spent a whole year, got a degree in film and media studies.
Wow.
That was hard because I studied the history of film and did a whole major in 3/4, but maxing out how many units I could take at that time. But, it was one of the best years of my life because I got to immerse myself in nothing but film.
Wow.
And I learned a ton because then I went from, okay, film is, Stanford's very great, very good at teaching film theory. It's not a production campus. I mean, the docu program, MBA, is wonderful. It's one of the best in the world, which I had a lot of classes with a lot of those, really brilliant minds, which was great. But from a production standpoint, that's not what we did there. But we studied and we understood. We studied theory, and coming from spending 3.5 years working on a feature film myself, taking that experience, blending it with theory, it completely blew my mind. Right, it completely changed how I look at the art form. Then from there, I was like, I got the bug. I got to get deeper into this. I applied to USC's graduate program, got into there. I was there for a year. That was great. Did great there. Met a lot of great people. And then this television show, All American, started being crafted, created, and they were looking for writers. And I found a way through a friend to get an interview with the showrunner at the time. And I wound up getting the job. I was there for 2 years, and all of a sudden, I have a career in Hollywood.
Wow.
And then then now I'm working on this story about Bruce Franks Jr., which is an adaptation of the short doc that was nominated for an Oscar called St. Louis Superman. And Bruce, ironically from St. Louis, who was a battle rapper turned activist during Ferguson, right? Who wound up running for statewide office in the House of Representatives in 2016, lost to an incumbent, a black woman, but it was found out that she was kind of using absentee ballots to cheat.
Jeez.
Challenged it. They had 48 hours to rerun the election. He winds up blowing everybody out of the doors. This guy's got tattoos on his face and everything, and he's a rapper. He's whatever it is. You would never think this guy was a politician, but he winds up winning this race. And then you see him in the House of Representatives, and you see in Missouri, in the state of Missouri, and then you see him on Tucker Carlson, and you see him everywhere after that. And the story is just amazing because the beauty of a guy like a Bruce is that even though he looks like someone in his own way, he says, okay, you may think that I look like a thug, right? But he in his own words, he's a businessman, he's a father, right? He's a college graduate. Bruce is a very smart, great guy, even though he's got 34 tattoos, including the ones on his face, right? But he can talk and walk across the aisle better than anyone in the House of Representatives at the time, right? And so he's more of a unifier. Even with support of his constituency, it's black, white, and everything in between, and you don't see that all the time in politics. So I looked at this guy's story. This is the story of now, a personal connection to him. His uncle is like my big brother. You know what I mean? And so I've been working on it for about 2 years now, and we're getting ready to take that out. So that was kind of that's been the journey. You know, football was great and I loved it, but when concussions started coming, I had to get out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's incredible. I did read, I think I saw you had like 4 in 1 year, is that right? 4 concussions?
Four in one calendar
Oh my
year. It's
God.
a real deal.
Yeah, film's definitely not
Yeah.
gonna give you that many, hopefully.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an
Heart attacks, not concussions.
exactly. Yeah, especially studying it at Stanford, I can't imagine. It was a similar thing at at Berkeley. It was the same thing. It was all theory instead of production. So I totally can relate to
Yeah.
just like immersing yourself into the history and learning just everything from like German film to Chinese film and all everything in between and the history of all that. It's really incredible. So um,
It really does, and it really informs what you're doing. And I firmly believe, like, if you want to grow as a filmmaker, you have to study. You got to know where this comes from. You got to know the depths. You got to understand, like, what the meaning of a shot is. And what was beautiful about, like, going through and doing that, and, like, what was so eye-opening is, like, look, the early filmmakers, they were scientists. They wrote about what they were doing,
mhm.
these experiments in film, right? Like, beautiful stuff. Like, you know, everybody reads the book Save the Cat now,
Mhm.
but no one realizes that, like, Sergei Eisenstein had a short that he had done when he was testing, like, what makes someone likable, and he had a protagonist that was literally just saving cats
Yeah.
to understand. And, no lie. And so we understand, like, when your protagonist does something kind or does something well, like, the audience has a stronger emotional response, right?
Exactly.
And the Russians were on the forefront of so many things that we do today, as far as we're talking about filmmaking, right? And to me, that's beautiful. I mean, you talk about, like, Battleship Potemkin, you know, and it's like that's George Lucas.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Spielberg.
Yeah. It is incredible. It really is down
You
to the
know?
science, like you said. And it something you said just now stood out to me with the meaning of a shot. And I was thinking of that watching Augustus, your most recent film, watching that, and each shot felt like there was something in there that everything was meant to be there for a reason. Like the Skittles on the pavement and everything. It was just incredible. Would you mind telling us a little bit about of your creative process with Augustus and maybe what it's about and everything for you?
Oh, 100%. I mean, look, Augustus is a very unique film. I actually think we kind of created a unique structure that I haven't really seen before in my studies,
Mm-hmm.
right, for this film, blending the past and the present with the dreamscapes, but then also utilizing, contemporary historical moments that we understand, right, and making them personal to the protagonist, and then affecting the protagonist's journey, like, throughout the story. And, Ida Howell, who was the writer on the short, brought the original screenplay to me, something that he'd been working on for about 2 years. And I worked with him when I was at USC on another short film called Sellout, which I never put out to the world, but it's a really great short. I loved it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was like an early one I did when I was in grad school. And, I just kind of, like, listened to the world, right? The world will tell you some things sometimes, which is really interesting, because what had just happened was Allende was in a Gillette commercial where he played the father of the linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, the Griffin, I think it was Shaquem, who broke my NFL Combine record as the fastest linebacker.
Oh wow.
My record had stood for about 12 years, and he broke it,
Wow.
right? And Allende played his father in that commercial, which I thought was amazing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I looked at it when he came to me, I said, look, there's something that's telling me to do this, right? And so, at that point when I read the original screenplay, which had a lot of these great ideas that you do see on screen when you're talking about blending the time periods, I was like, because of my experience as a writer, I was like, let's make it more personal, right? Let's make the protagonist more active, right? Let's follow his headspace throughout the story. Let's be strong and smart about our structure, and we've got something here. And we honed it in. It took about 2 months. I was very fortunate to get Matt Edwards, our cinematographer, who was amazing. We were just lucky enough to talk about our process in Variety with Jazz 10K, the artist editor over there. We came together and we believed in the story, and we kind of made something. We made something that we felt was great because the story itself was so strong and pertinent to where we're living now. But as far as that story is concerned, considering like exactly what you're saying, we kind of poured our hearts into the screenplay and kind of believed, okay, well, we only have 3.5 days to shoot this, but so that means that we have to be very deliberate about everything that we are doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what you're saying is a truth. We are really looking to say things in each frame because, I spent a lot of time studying stuff like 12 Years a Slave when I made that, which is a masterpiece in so many ways. And, some things only upon like the 20th viewing does like the truth become apparent of the intention of the creatives,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And then you discover, oh my God, there's this and this and this. But then once you learn, and I kind of learned this to think this way at USC as well as Stanford, it's like you have to understand how to think like a director. You have to understand how to speak via an image and all the tools that are at your disposal, from color to sound, right, to angles, right, as well as just directing performance. So for me, approaching Augustus, which I feel like is a relatively serious subject matter, like, for me, I was like, it is going to be very, very, very necessary for us to make sure that we are treating this subject matter with reverence, because this is a short film, this is a story that's either going to go well, or go nowhere, right? Because it was a risk, and I think that as a team, from costuming to production design, cinematography, obviously, like, lighting and gaffing, I think our whole team did very, very well, and I'm just proud of what we were able to achieve with that film.
Oh, absolutely! I think your whole team should be so proud of themselves and just stunned. It was funny. I was watching it and I was thinking, like, this is what I miss from being in school for film, like, is watching the short films, because they do have. I feel like they're so much more impactful when they're short and they have that. Just every scene is so powerful, and it doesn't have the over the top, like, ridiculous production. It's strictly about the film and the meaning behind the film, and I really just really loved watching that, and the meaning behind it and how it ties into everything that's happening in the world now, and it's just incredible, and I think it's something that everybody should see. It was I love that there was no holding back in the discomfort of the subject matter. It really, like, you weren't afraid to make the viewer feel what was meant to be felt in that moment, and it was just really stunning.
No, I appreciate that. I have to continue to credit that with our team as well, because, like, for me, personally, like, I'm not a super social person, like, I love watching my movies, I like hanging with friends here and there, but I'm not, like, super out there always. And with this story, we kind of push boundaries, and I think that kind of happens when you come with good collaborators, because you push each other, you know what I mean? And you do have to do that with film. You do have to do that with arts. You need to push the boundaries, You need to open yourself up, right? And so I'm always trying to look at myself and say, where am I getting in the way of what the story is trying to do, and step out of the way more and more and more as we approach the subject matter, And but yeah, like what you're saying with the Skittles, there's a lot of obvious alliterations to Trayvon Martin. You may or may not have picked up the Sandra Bland references, right?
Right.
The hanging scene with the wife in the dream, so a year after Sandra Bland died, the police force finally released, like, her own recording from her cell phone of the incident when she was arrested.
Oh, wow.
Which is completely different than what we got from beforehand. So when we're dealing with Kim Maniega, who was a beautiful, guy with the soundtrack, he did a great job. We told him, hey, look, man, take this, blend it into the music. Take this audio, put it here, right, and build from there, because it's necessary when we're talking about some of the themes, and when Augustus himself says, and he's telling his wife Anna, he's saying, hey, look, it's always the same, right? And it's something that he comes to the revelation through his dreamscape, through his dreams, right? It's always the same. Like, if I don't do something, if I don't stand up, if I don't say anything, like, what I'm living now is going to be the same, 200 years from now, right? And that was an issue that's problematic, you know what I mean? And so, like, what becomes interesting too is, like, what is it like, say Frederick Augustus Washington Douglass, did have a dream where, to us, it's Trayvon Martin, but to him, it's his son.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the biggest questions, right? It's personal.
Mm-hmm.
How would he react, right? But we are all the descendants of that ideology. We are all the descendants of Douglass,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so that's kind of the things that we're saying, we're putting into this story. And one of the things I always say is, like, look, one of the biggest things that we tried to approach when we talked about this film was, like, you know, look, if MLK had a dream, we are living Frederick Douglass's nightmare. And that became apparent last summer,
Mm-hmm.
right, in July, when they were destroying Frederick Douglass statues,
Yeah.
you know, tearing them down. You may think that history is irrelevant, but history is as prevalent as the present,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is as relevant, right? And if we ignore that history, right, then you forget, and you continue, and we're completely destined to repeat it, right? And not in great ways. And so these are the things that we kind of really, really like put our hearts into when we were like, look, we have to do this, we have to do this right, we have to try to really tell the story right, and I think. One of the most things that one of the things I'm most proud of is like the performance of the actors, right? And because they really bought in and gave, and I think that mattered most as far as selling the story.
100%. Yeah, they were incredible. The scene where Augustus is laying in the bed with his wife, and they're talking about his freedom and how his courage and everything is what got him his freedom, and that scene was one of my favorites in the whole film. And just laying there talking it felt like you literally were right there with them, and that was just a really special scene, I thought.
And the beauty of that, though, you know, I'm really thankful for Andy and Michelle. That came out of rehearsal.
Oh wow.
You know, it came out of rehearsal because when we were building into the script, we were like, look, this is the middle of the movie. This is a cementing of the back half. So what we wanted to do there was the first half of the film, Augustus is experiencing these dreams, and he's experiencing this stuff at work, and he's trying to be like a man. He's trying to keep it to himself. He's trying to,
Mm-hmm.
be strong. And it's affecting his relationship with his wife. You see early on, she calls for him,
Mm-hmm.
and he leaves. He just goes to work, right? When he comes home after being denied his wages for his work, XYZ, like, she breaks him down in a way, right? Like, he finally opens up. And in that opening, it cements that they are stronger when they are together. But he brings her into his world then,
Mm-hmm.
right? And only through that unification and that communication were they strong enough, especially him strong enough, to continue to battle these oppressive, the oppression that he was going through at work, but also these dreams, right, going forward. She gave him the courage. Their union gave him the courage, right, necessary to do that, even though he was hesitant, et cetera,
mm-hmm.
et cetera. But it became apparent to him at the necessity of speaking up after, you know, she also was able to witness for the first time what he had been enduring in his dreams. She shared one, and I thought that was a cool moment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like this film and my next works going forward, I like to explore and examine Black masculinity in the context of the United States of America,
mm-hmm.
right? Because Black culture is a matriarchal
mm-hmm.
culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no one wants to admit or understand, accept that and talk about that so much, right? But it's a matriarchal culture. You know, we need our women, right? And we need our women for our support, and you know, as much as anything, right? It's not like, oh, just go out and conquer and all these other things. It's like, no, we need to be unified people, and so that's what we're trying to speak to when we're dealing with the relationship between Augustus and Anna.
Right. Yeah. Their relationship was one of the standout things in that film for sure. I loved listening to that conversation with them and everything. So yeah, wonderful job to you and the writers and everything and the actors. It was amazing. But on that same subject, I did want to ask you your like input or thoughts on as we're in Black History Month and with everything that's happened in the past year, and how kind of just tell us how you feel about it, how you think that we should, or your thoughts on how we should celebrate and learn this month. And I mean, in my opinion, it needs to be every month of the year and not just this one month, but I also think it's important to highlight this month as well.
Yeah, no, I look, we're very fortunate that we do have a month to be able to celebrate examine, look back, and think about the history of, the contributions of Black Americans to society, right? It's a necessary step towards unification, right? So that we understand value. I mean, every ethnic group in the United States of America deserves the opportunity to be able to share and talk about that and to feel a certain sense of pride, right? And then we won't need months.
Exactly.
We won't need only months. We'll just be unified, right? And we'll just communicate,
it's the end
right?
goal, right?
Right. That is 100%. So that we go, no, value your fellow man, value your fellow American, right? Like, America is not one color, and so for me, I think that's wonderful. And the beauty of it, like I said, I made a period piece. There's always hesitation when you're dealing with slave content and slavery. There's a lot of knocks on it. I personally don't understand it as much, but I know that especially a lot of Black people are very hesitant when it comes to like slave content, right? So we wanted to try to play with that genre some and say, okay, cool. Then we're gonna bring it to your world too. We're gonna make it contemporary. We're gonna bring it in there, so that we can show, look, history is important, and to negate, something, a film or a story because it dealt with slave times or slavery, right? The pre-Civil War, et cetera, it's to negate the experiences that our ancestors went through. We can't do that. You can't forget that, right? You can't on one end say, I don't want to hear about this, but then on the other one say, oh, we need repair, we need reparations in a way, right? But you need to understand where it came from. I mean, only in my adult age like my adult years, did I start to really, really understand Black history and really, really understand that a lot of the things that when you're looking at economic disadvantages and socioeconomic disadvantages that African Americans or Blacks deal with in the United States of America, these are remnants. These are remnants of the same mentalities that were built during the slave trade, right? In the antebellum South. You know what I mean? And then they were baked into our laws, right? And so you look at that and you're saying, okay, well, I need to know. If I don't know history, I don't even know what I'm up against. If I don't know history, I don't know what I'm up against. And so for me, it's fascinating subject matter. I don't want to do it the way everyone else has done it, but I do want to examine it and say something about it, And so when we're talking about now, what happened last year and everything, is like, look, I will say this. What was beautiful about last year and people taking to the streets and people, communicating is that people started to understand, look, our leadership is not our God. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It is up to us as individuals to be active, to be informed, to be of knowledge, and then to go out and primarily vote. We take action, we say something about it, and then we go and we vote, right? And if Trump was impeached, before this latest impeachment, he was impeached. Congress was not going to remove him, but you know who did? The citizens of the United States of America, and who really showed up? African Americans in Georgia.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? This mattered. Michigan. It really mattered. And so when you're talking about these things, to say, okay, cool, like you understand, and we start to understand, like that we do have a place in this country. We do have rights, and we should exercise, and we will exercise those rights. And so for me, like I think that it becomes very, very apparent that there is progress. Is it equality yet? No, it's not equality. The statistics aren't equal. They'll tell you the truth. But are we moving in that direction? I do believe so, as long as we continue to do the things that I just spoke of. Because now our next challenge is going to be fighting larger laws and larger efforts to suppress the vote. They've already introduced multiple bills in the state of Georgia to suppress the vote in regards to the next elections, right? So let's be vigilant and let's not let these things happen. And say, okay, cool. We're not going to sit here and roll over like we have in the past when you've introduced legislation to make it harder to vote, right? And made the obstacles almost impossible, right? To overcome. But now people are doing that. They're fighting back. So I say, hey, cool, bring it on. You're going to lose this battle in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
that's the
Yeah,
way I
no,
felt about it or
I
feel
think
about it.
everything you said is spot on. I think it's like you said, the end goal is the unity, and it's equality is not here now, but I do think we are working towards it. Like you said, I think this last year was really powerful and showed um, that we're working towards it, like you said. Um, I do want to thank you for sharing your thoughts and being here with us and talking to us and taking the time to listen to our questions and share your story with us. We will definitely be sharing I'll be sharing that film with as many people as I can, and uh, so thank you.
No, I certainly appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Thank you for taking the time to have me on. We're going to be showing at New Filmmakers Los Angeles on the 20th of this month. We're honored to be there. And we just had a lot of beautiful things coming about with the short. I want as many people who can to see it. So thank you so much for sharing it, communicating about it, talking to me.
Well,
We're
thank
very
you,
blessed.
John. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll keep you posted on when the podcast release and social media posts and all that for you. Thanks,
Thank you
John.
so
Bye
much.
bye. And thank you for listening. Follow us on social media and wherever you listen to your podcast for more inspirational stories from the world's positive change makers.